Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. And today, still with the use of ChatGPT, we will see how to enhance pronunciation skills for our students. Um, ChatGPT has potentials, but what cannot do is to provide real-time audio feedback. So we need to find another way, but we have 1,000 possibilities. So what can ChatGPT do is suggest and elaborate text-based methods. And then it's up to the teacher, the trainer, to help our learner, the student, to, uh, to combine these methods with actual active listening from native speakers or non-native speakers, but anyway, speakers of that language. So let's see what we can do. We go through 9 points, and after that, we will see on actual ChatGPT some examples. So the first important one is transliteration. Transliteration, it means that it will give your student a way to pronounce a word, although they don't know the exact rules of pronunciation, so they don't need to know all the rules for pronunciation in order to understand how to pronounce a word. That doesn't mean that this is the way how we teach the pronunciation, but it's a help for them to understand the pronunciation of that word. So it can provide transcription using the International Phonetic Alphabet, but also other alphabet if we want to, depends on the languages. Now, ChatGPT will give a breakdown of the pronunciation and will help the student visualizing the word. For example, we can ask ChatGPT, I'm an English speaker, can you transliterate the Italian word chiacchierare? Or I'm a Mandarin speaker, how do you transliterate the French word croissant? And we'll see later with some examples what that means and how it can help. Other thing are pronunciation tips, meaning actual tips on how to position your tongue. This explanation will be a little bit more detailed, and you will have, depends on specific sound, maybe a specific guidance. So, for example, we can ask, can you explain how to pronounce the sound gli in Italian? Or what is the correct tongue position to pronounce the R in Spanish? And then it will try to guide you with some examples, with references on language that you know. So, for example, in this prompt, you can also tell ChatGPT what is your native language. So when it will explain it, we'll be using reference word for the native language of the student. So if I'm in English learning the G sound in Italian, it will give me probably the sound of the word million. While maybe if I'm a Japanese, it will give me a different word as a reference. We have a comparing sound. So ChatGPT can help in differentiating the similar sound, explain the differences, the one that are a little bit more subtle, and then provide examples. So as a prompt, we can ask what is the differentiation between e and e in Italian, or if you can explain to distinguish between the sound D and T in German. We then have some practice sentences. So I can ask ChatGPT to help me practicing these sounds. So it will create sentences focusing on specific sounds or pronunciation challenges. It will give some contextual learning for tricky sounds, or encourage me in repeating some main words, trying to master them. So can you give me a few sentences to practice the ñ and the y sound in Italian? Or I need some example sentences to practice the French nasal vowels. So, of course, we need to guide our students with these prompts, or we can prepare for them those things. So, we can either teach them to do it on their own, or we can, let's say, if we preparing a pronunciation lesson, we can ask ChatGPT these questions for the students so that we can prepare the material for them, and then they will already have it something prepared and ready without them having to ask. And if we teach them how to use ChatGPT, maybe they can ask more example if they feel like, and if they already use all the ones that you gave them, maybe they want to practice more, they can ask more example. We have also an important focus on syllable stress and intonation. So ChatGPT can guides on placement of stress in words, explain importance of intonation in order to get a more natural sounding speech. So, for example, the difference between discuss and discuss in English, of course. And so the prompts could be, can you show me where the stress falls in the German word Wissenschaft? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. And how should the sentence a che ora vieni be pronounced in terms of intonation in Italian? Our 6 points is homophones and minimal pairs. So again, enhance listening and pronunciation skills, generates list of homophones for practice, and defines minimal pairs to distinguish sounds. So, for example, can you give me a list of minimal pairs that differentiate between B and V sounds in Spanish? Or can you provide some homophones in Mandarin and their meanings to help me practice pronunciations? So that's we're going from some questions that are more generic to here that we're focusing on specific words. So words that are homophones, or exactly the minimal pairs. So we actually trying to go more specific and maybe more advanced. So some of the questions that we saw before, they might work for beginners. Here we getting more complex, so the student probably it's a higher level than a beginner or an elementary. We have spelling pronunciation connection. So explain relation between spelling and pronunciation, and helps predict pronunciation of new words, so that yes, I learn how to pronounce these words, but now if I find the same sound in another words, I will be able to pronounce it. So why is night pronounced without the K in English? Or how does the spelling affect the pronunciation of O in English words like through and though? We have customized exercises. So while before I ask some sentences to practice some words, but I can also create personalized exercise that target specific pronunciation difficulties, or some tongue twisters. So can you create a tongue twister that focuses on the hard and soft C sound in Italian? Or can you make a short reading passage that helps me practice the French Q sound? And finally, we have the cultural pronunciation variants, because of course, that for some languages it's not enough to learn the language, because the same language is spoken in different countries with different dialects and pronunciations and different way of pronouncing the same word. So I might want to understand what is the difference depending on the country that I am. So if I'm in England, or if in America, or in Canada, or in Australia, what is the difference there with the same word? So can explain regional pronunciation differences, cover dialects, and in general understand a better have a better understanding of cultural nuances. So some prompts could be: can you explain how the pronunciation of water difference between British and American English? Or or what are some differences in pronunciation between Latin American Spanish and Castilian Spanish. So these are the things, the main things that I can do with ChatGPT. I invite you to find maybe other things that I didn't think about, um, and see what else can be done with ChatGPT. Maybe you could even ask to create a role play using specific sounds. So if you are in a class, in a group class, then they can do the role play, but they will also have to use specific sounds or specific words. Now, let's have a look if we actually going to ChatGPT. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT, I'm a native English speaker and I'm learning Italian. Can you please help me transliterate the following words? Famiglia, prosciutto, lasagne, chiacchierare, sognare, grazie, chitarra. And maybe these one are words that me as a student, or you know that your student has trouble with. So as you see, here I have a transliteration. Famiglia, this is not a phonetic spelling, but it's a transliterate. So we have this fa, mi, ya. Of course, it will not be perfect. So you will still need the help of the trainer or listening to some recordings to see what you're saying and what you hear from the recording, if they match or not. But it gets close enough for you to start getting a little bit of, for you, your student, to get a little bit of confidence in how he's pronouncing the words. Here, I asked if I was an English speaker. Let's see if, for example, I'm or my student is a Chinese speaker that is learning Italian. So I will ask, what if I was a Chinese native? Will the translation will be different? And let's see what ChatGPT tells us. Yes, the transliteration will be different if you are a native Chinese speaker. So as you can see now, it's giving me a different type of transliteration because it applies to the sounds for Chinese. And for example, here, what I'm saying that it's close enough, but is not exactly correct always, is because, for example, in Mandarin, they don't have the sound R. So the R, especially a rolled R, is not present in the sound. So they cannot transliterate the sound of an R. So what it's doing, for example, for sognare, is using the L. That is the closest one that they have. So me, as a teacher, I will help the student understand, okay, here you have this transliteration, but be mindful that if you see an R, you will have to roll the R. You cannot pronounce L. Now, of course, at the beginning, it will be hard, but you will try to train them on rolling the R. And of course, if they don't know how to do it, you can still ask ChatGPT how to position your tongue. So I will ask, how do I position my tongue to make an Italian R sound? Here is giving me all the steps that I need to follow in order to be able to pronounce the rolling R. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that as soon as I get this instruction, I will be able to perfectly roll the R. But it is a first step. But let's see some other prompt that we can ask. So, for example, before we said that ChatGPT will help also to recognize a sound and then be able to pronounce other words aside of the transliteration that just gave me. Because if I have this transliteration here, it doesn't really mean that I learn how to pronounce the sound gli or the sound sh or gn in Italian. So I can ask, what are the phonetic, more fundamental keys for an English student studying Italian? And see what ChatGPT gives me. I have some guidance. For example, on the vowel sounds, the A, that is always pronounced like A in father. The E in Italian, so the English E, that actually it sounds either like in bet or in say. That is the difference between E and E in Italian, an open and a closed eye. Or the I pronounce E, so like see, or O, that is pronounced like thought, or go, or the U pronounced like food. Then you have consonant sounds that are even more complicated, but so you have the soft and the hard C and G, the sounds sh, the sound y, the sound ny, or the rolling R. And then it gives me as well some indication on syllable stress, intonation, and vowel elision. Now, once I have this generic, if there is something that I want to understand better, then I can ask follow-up questions. Or just be, for example, if I'm at the beginning, I might be able to say, okay, this is a generic thing. Slowly, I will go into vowel elisions that at the beginning is not that relevant for beginners. So at the beginning, I might want to focus on the vowel sounds, for example, and on some of these consonant sounds that are very important. Then rolling an R is not that relevant at the beginning. We want to get a good R later on, but as a beginner, if the R is not rolled, it's not the end of the world. So these could be some questions that I can ask. So going back to our slides and our prompts, for example, we were talking about the difference between e and e in Italian. That it was actually ChatGPT just mentioned it before when we asked some fundamental keys. So I could ask exactly this question now to have a little bit more understanding of these open and closed E, or as we pronounce in Italian, E. So let's see. It tells me the usage of it. So what is a word that it's very commonly found? A little bit of a summary to remind me how to pronounce it. And I could ask, can you help me pronounce it and tell me the mouth and tongue position? And as you can see, it gives me a really detailed process. So the sound, what is the sound? What is the mouth position with the lips and the jaw? And the tongue position with the body of the tongue and the tip of the tongue, and the generic vowel sound. So we have the open and then we have the close. And then we have some practice tip. And then I could ask, I don't know, a list of words to practice it. And of course, here it's where you as a trainer come in, meaning that the student needs a trainer to tell them, okay, yeah, you're doing it right, or yes, you're following the instruction, but actually the sound that comes out is not the right one, so maybe there is something you're doing wrong. So you will help them figure it out where the problem lies. But in this way, they have a very good start. Let's see with one of the prompts for intonation. This one as well could be very interesting to do. So we go, how should the sentence a che ora vieni be pronounced in terms of intonation in Italian? Again, I have a guide divided by bits of the sentence. So you start with an neutral tone, a che ora, here you rise, And it tells you even the vowel O of ora has to be clearly pronounced. So it doesn't die in your mouth. It has to be clear. And then it goes higher on ra. A che ora, and then you keep going up with the intonation then rising noticeably on the syllable V, and then slightly fall on any. So, a che ora vieni? So you see, you're going up and then you drop down. A che ora vieni? So that is the way, of course, again, the trainer can help the student understand this guidance. So when you will try with new sentences and with new things, we'll understand what that means, rising and fall, and how to recognize it. But if we start in this way, we prepare a document like this with the student, we go through it with the students, and then the student will do it by themselves on ChatGPT with other sentences, we can then later on see if that does match. Of course, at the beginning, especially for beginners, it will sound robotic, but as soon as they get the hang of it, then it will get better. But also, let's have a look, for example, of minimal pairs. Let's do it in English, though, so everyone can understand it. Can you give me a list of minimal pairs that differentiate T and th sounds in English? So, thin and thin, tank and thank, three and three, thick and thick. So in this way, the students can understand the difference of the sound with words that actually are real words, but that do some difference just because of that little sound. And we can do something similar with the homophones. Let's do it again in English so it's clearer for all of us, for all of you. Bear and bear. These are words that are spelled differently, but actually are pronounced in the same way. So, to buy something, or bye, that's all the same sound, but spelled differently. Now that we saw all the prompts, all the options that we have with ChatGPT and pronunciation, I will put these slides down below in the description of this video. And what I'm asking from you is to try some of those in the language that you teach. You can choose maybe one or up to three options. So, for example, you can try some of those prompts in transliteration, and maybe one on comparing sound and one in syllable stress and intonation, to see how it fits in your language and what is the result. You can even try some different prompts and see if you can readapt this prompt to your language, because maybe there are some different ways to put it, considering your language, especially with language that have a particular script, like it could be Russian or Mandarin or Japanese or Korean. So maybe you can come out with some new prompt. Spend roughly 10 minutes, 15 minutes on it, and see what you can come up with. See, maybe even with your colleagues, work together with a colleague and see if in these 10, 15 minutes you manage to create some even more useful prompt on a specific topic. I'm very curious to see what you can create and how you can improve the use of ChatGPT for pronunciation. So I hope that you like this video, that you find it useful, and see you next. Ciao, ciao.